So where is the opportunity? If it's only that big a capital investment that allows players to enter into it, where do you see the opportunity going forward?
So this is where the piece I was talking about, which is the algorithm exploration. Right? So the innovation in the algorithms, if you can innovate on the algorithm to a point where you don't need the data center, you don't need that mega cluster. It's not to say it's not going to be useful. Try imagining a continuum of compute, right? Where you have, for example, we still have some mainframes kicking around, right? We still have some very centralized systems, and the guys at Sun who became Oracle still sell very big systems. But if you look at a picture of, say, the Alta Vista, which was one of the best search engines, or Excite, if you look at their data center versus what the Google data center looked like in the early 2000s, you'll notice something very interesting, which is that they had racks of these. A small number of racks of these very big, like Hewlett-Packard or Sun or SGI architectures, or DEC, the DEC Alpha. And then all of a sudden, it looked like 10,000, just 1U, 2U racks of very simple computers, basically PC architectures. And that's what the Google one ended up as. So if you imagine the same thing, it's like, what if you could take that big mega cluster and make it a cluster out of simpler chips, less powerful chips? What if you don't need to connect with InfiniBand? What if you don't need to liquid cool those things? Because this immediately saves you money. So think about it as like, what if through algorithmic innovation, I don't have to use these tightly coupled clusters architected with CUDA, which is the special language that the NVIDIA controls. And no one else has, and everybody writes to it, and so there's a big lock in there. What if you could just distribute that? And then if you want to get a little bit further and say, okay, what if you could put these clusters a little bit further away from each other? What if you could put them in different places, or different cities, and so on? And then what if the whole system was incentivized and decentralized, like we've been talking about in crypto? So imagine that continuum. So it's not to say it's decentralized AI versus centralized AI. It's a continuum of compute, and it runs all the way down to the devices. So your phone is already starting to do some things locally, and your Mac, or PC, if you configure it properly, can run language models directly. It can access data that's local to you, and I think that will continue. So you'll start to have compute that accesses locally, accesses data locally, some of that which just stays private to you, because why does it need to go anywhere? And then every so often it's going to need to call out to the mega cluster, or it's going to call out something local, or it's going to train a new model. Maybe it doesn't have access to the mega cluster. Maybe it runs across some incentivized system that it can pay using crypto. So this this continuum of thing, and the idea with Nazare is invest in the infrastructure that enables that continuum, kind of that future to be possible.
That's I mean, we were just talking also yesterday just how it is becoming so much more integral a part of everybody's lives, right? So AI is here, it helps us increase productivity, helps us learn more, keeps us agile, and then is a constant coach for us, right? I mean,
it's a coaching.
So it's a coach there with you at any aspect that you need help on, or are looking for guidance on, or need results on, or doing research on, etc. Right? So it's like
take a screenshot of your calendar, upload it, ask it to research the people who you're meeting, give you speaking points, and then now it has access to. Some of them have access to a set of repositories. Goes through that, finds talking points. Your day. What should you eat today? How should you work out today? Plan. It's like our like imagination hasn't even really explored all the possibilities of these things, and I think you'll see, as we saw people in the early days like living on Bitcoin, you see people like living on AI, like how can I use AI to the maximum possible potential within these worlds? And in some ways, the mega clusters of today in AI are kind of a throwback to, we constantly, I mean, I see this in crypto too, we constantly decentralize and centralize and decentralize and centralize in different ways. I'd argue we're sort of in a very centralizing state right now, and starting to decentralize in AI at least. So. The thing I worry about, I think that we'll solve the wealth distribution problem. Either it'll get solved, or people will solve it. Imbalances in power like that don't last very long. Hopefully it's solved in a nice way and peacefully. But it will be solved. What I'm more worried about agency and people's sense of purpose. Because in the last couple of decades, we've been very good at pacifying people.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, people just binge Netflix. Yeah. They binge this, they binge that. You know, they're
scrolling.
They're taking things. They're either drinking or they're taking pharmaceuticals to numb them to life. They're doing their job and they come back home and they're just checking in and checking out. Right. Yeah. Imagine that you don't have to work anymore. Imagine there's a universal basic income or whatever you call it, like some kind of government subsidy, so that people are fine. Right. There's nothing to do. Just chill. Do your thing. Right. Do whatever you want. Yeah. So then what? Right. What do people do? And I think that my concern is not that there'll be some great uprising against the machines because people are bored. Yeah. My concern is actually that everyone just gets pacified. Yeah. And then there's a few people left who want to do things, and maybe it's hard for them to do things. I don't know, maybe it's easy for them to do things. Or maybe there's like this sort of gaps in society where people who want to create things and then people who just don't care. Yeah. That's the more dystopian world for me that I worry about, is how do we get people to
stay active,
to be productive to life, like kind of like move the species forwards in interesting ways, whether it's creatively or otherwise. It just I think that's help the rest of humanity up through this cycle.
Yeah, because
how do we take this and like help the rest of the world that doesn't even have access to GPUs? I think that soft skills are going to suddenly become fashionable.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm not saying everyone should just stop and study liberal arts, but I think that an understanding of philosophy, psychology, communication skills, these are going to be, and the way that humans work and interact with one another, and whether that's all the way from history all the way through to economics or sociology, these kind of, that will set people apart from one another, I believe, and also it'll set them apart from the machines. Yeah. Right? And I think already we're starting to have these conversations with people where he's saying, like, suddenly we're talking about these philosophical concepts of, well, is something intelligent and something not intelligent? When do we define intelligence? The Turing test itself is like clearly being broken a number of times, depending on how you define it. But is it intelligent? Is it self-aware? Is it conscious? These are ideas from philosophy that we haven't had to really think through in practical terms. They've just been thought experiments. And suddenly now they may not be thought experiments. I think that my concern is not that there'll be some great uprising against the machines because people are bored. My concern is actually that everyone just gets pacified. But I don't think life is the pursuit of happiness. I think life is the pursuit of purpose. And I think happiness comes from having purpose.
That pursuit of purpose.
And the idea that you're just here to be happy, I think is a challenging one, especially as we enter this age of the sort of potentially post-scarce to a scarcity environment.